So now if we do a quick little render of what this will look like, and before I hit render, I'm just going to set it up so that it has a white background opposed to black. It'll show up a little easier. So to do that, we're going on to Render, Environment. We're just going to set our color of our background to white, just a little bit off white. Alright, Shift F will allow me to see what our actual render window will look like. So we'll just kind of crop this up into the view a little bit. And the hotkey is F9 to render, or you can just click the render production here. Okay, so we can see we got our outlines, a bit of a cartoon look to it, bit of a style here, 3 different colors on the metal. Okay, so next we have to do is the eyeballs. So for the eyes, what we're going to do is a bit of a UV unwrap. So the problem is right now is our pole vectors are at the top, and let me just throw a UV unwrap modifier on top. And before I do that, UVs are UV coordinates of how the model's laid out. So if you think back to grade school, when your teacher had you take a cube and it was almost looked like a lowercase t, and you would fold up the edges, and if you fold them up you would get a shape. Well, that's essentially what UV unwrapping is. UV is taking the already made shape and unfolding it until you have a flat image. That way we can paint it into a 2D painting program like Photoshop. So let's take a look at what this UV unwrap looks like by adding a UV unwrap modifier. Unwrap UVW, and we can just click on the edit button. So what we have here, I'm just going to turn off our grid so you can kind of see a little bit better what we got here. Okay, so if you take a look at the green here, the green represents all the seams on the models where they're not fully connected, and we can see up here we have some green ones, and on the bottom we have some green ones. So we need these top parts, the pole vectors, to be facing the front. So this will be the iris of the eyeball, and this out here will be the colored part. So what we'll do is just come out of the UV unwrap modifier and just rotate this 90 degrees forward. Get 90, and the same will happen to this one. Okay, so what we need to do now is take this UV unwrap and take a snapshot of it. That way we can bring it into Photoshop and we can paint right on this, and as we paint on it we can bring it back into 3D Studio Max and we can see what that's going to look like. So we're going to go to Tools, Render UVW Template, and right here the width and the height represents how many pixels this is going to be rendered out as. And you want to render this out as the same files or size as your final photo. Because we're not going to need much detail on the eyeball, we're just going to go with something small like 512 by 512. We'll hit Render UV Template. Okay, and then we're just going to save this somewhere. So we're going to click on the floppy disk icon here. I like to save mine as a PNG, that way I get a bit of an alpha channel. We're going to call this Hammer Eyeball UV Snap. Hit enter. And now we can hit OK. So I'm going to bring this up in Photoshop. File, open, and just open this up. I'm going to name this layer UV Snap. Now it's a bit hard to see, so what I'm going to do is add in a layer underneath. I'm just going to call this background, and I'm just going to fill it in black. Alright, perfect. Alright, so now we need the color of the eyeball, which is going to be it's going to be white. So we'll fill this in white. Okay, so we need another layer now. This is going to be the iris. And I'm just going to turn off the eyeball for now while I make my selection. And I know that all these triangles up here at the top are going to be the iris. Just make my selection. I'm going to fill that in black. And now I'm going to make another layer that is going to be the color of the eyeball. Now I'm just going to make that maybe halfway through the next bit of squares here, and just a little bit on top of the black. And let's give him some light blue eyes. Now just to add a little bit of realism to this, not much, we're just going to go ahead and grab this smudge tool and lower or scale down our brush, and I'm using the greater than the swirly brackets, and that will make our brushes bigger and smaller. So I'm just going to go through this, so just kind of make it look like it's just not one flat color, it just kind of bleeds into the iris a little bit. So I'm going to pause this for a moment while I do this. Okay, so I finished with the smudge tool of adjusting this so that the color blends into the iris a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to turn the eyeball back on. We're going to go to File. Oh, I see that we have a bit of an issue here. Some of the eyeball showing up over the blue, so I'm just going to move the color up a little bit. Actually, I'll move the iris down a little bit. Okay, we're going to File, Save As. And we're going to save this as a PSD file so we can have this. Alright, we'll save this out as a PNG file. You could choose whatever format you want. I prefer to use PNGs, just they seem to be the lowest quality, or the lowest in file size. They have their alpha channels. I don't have many problems with them, so. And save. Alright, so now we're going to go into 3D Studio Max, and it's time to create our material here for the eyeball. So we're going to open up the material editor. We're going to go to a new material, and we're going to call this eyeball. And we're going to add in a standard ink and paint. Except for now where we use in the color for the lighted, we're actually going to go into none and choose a bitmap file. And for that we're going to use the eyeball. Alright, we can drag and drop that onto our eyeball now, hit the on button, and there you go. Now we have an eyeball. Perfect. Alright, so we're going to drag and drop that onto the other eyeball as well. And for this material, we're going to come back out. We're going to, same as for the rest, we're going to set our paint levels up. We're going to have it highlighted, ink quality to 5, and we're going to set our outline to just a little bit darker than white. Perfect. So now we can zoom out, crop out our guy. Alright, and there he is so far. Alright, next we need to do the eyebrows. So grab a new material, type in eyebrows, go into the standard tab, add in an ink and paint. And for the eyebrows, I believe we're going to use just a little bit of a brownish color. Set our paint levels to 3, ink quality to 5, set our outline to be a little bit lighter color, darker color than our eyebrows. Hit OK, and turn our highlights on. Okay, great. So I think at this point we actually want to remove the highlights off the body and the eyebrows. So in the eyebrows, we'll just turn off the highlight. We're going to go back to the body, turn off this highlight, and we'll give that another render. Alright, perfect. Close this up. I'll work around with this quality of the outline here. Stop. Just kind of playing around with these settings, see if I can get the look that I'm looking for here. Actually, I'm going to turn this all the way down. Okay, yes, it works out best for us if we don't have the outline turned on the eyebrows, so we'll just keep those turned off. Okay, and at this point we can go ahead and create just a quick light setup just to see more of our highlights happening here. So I'm going to go to Create, Lights, Standard Lights, Omni Light. Go to our top view, we'll add a backlight, fill light, key light. Alright, my shadow light here I'm just going to raise up. Alright, I want to set my fill light here 0.3. And I'll set my backlight up so that it casts shadows. And then we'll just position ourselves a little bit so that that backlight is kind of hidden. Alright, there we go. Okay, that's going to wrap it up pretty much for our tutorial today. We've gone over UV unwrapping, basic material setups, how to name our files, and in the next tutorial we're going to go over how to make a quick rig so that we can see this guy brought to life. So I appreciate everyone stopping by, checking out the tutorial. Again, please check back weekly as we plan on updating quite often.